Let's see. Who is this? Yep. Paulie, what up, champ?
Hey, what's up, man? What's going on?
Chilling, chilling, man. Well, first and foremost, congrats on the top rank. Um, announcing job. Is that permanent, or were you just filling in for Bradley or in Algeria?
No, I was just filling in for Chris. Chris is my boy. He couldn't make it last night, so I was just filling in with him, man. That's my guy, Chris, man. He does a good job there.
Okay, okay. And
I was just filling in for last
how,
night.
how'd it feel calling it with Raul Marquez and Christina Poncher?
Well, they're both pros, you know. Christina is actually very, very good. You know,
Yeah.
she's come a long way. She's really done a good job. She does her homework. She knows how to really direct the show and call the fights. And Raul, Raul, I go way back with because Raul, he was at Showtime on the Latin base, on the Latin language broadcast for Showtime. So I've been around Raul forever. So me and him, we have a good dynamic regardless. Because we're friends.
So before we get into the boxing, bro, I seen the transformation, and you signed a
Mhm.
3-fight deal with with bare knuckle boxing. Like,
Yeah,
was
BKB. Yep.
was that always the plan?
No, it wasn't always the plan. I think different things considering your mind. I guess it can't be really one thing, that says, okay, led me to say, oh, I'm gonna do this. It's one thing is, creating myself some financial options. I mean, automatically people go to the thought of, oh, it's finances. He needs money. I live pretty good. I probably live better than most people. And I'm blessed for that. But I think that in an economy that's a little turbulent, I think if you want to stay ahead of the game and you want to also create different financial options for yourself, maybe more so than other people might have, or might have the opportunity to have. I think you gotta be proactive, and I think I started seeing that with the economy, and I was like, let me be proactive, jump ahead of this right now, and see what I can do. But I wasn't sure if it was going to be fighting, because at my age and whatnot, and you don't know how everybody's body reacts, so I got myself in shape and started feeling pretty good getting in shape. Like I dropped some weight at first. Like it was tough and all that stuff. But I'm pretty OCD when it comes to when I put something in my head. So I dropped a lot of weight, and I got on a really low calorie diet and put in some work. But I wasn't doing any boxing. I started working out with weights. I started working out with just running and shadow boxing just to get the conditioning and sweat going. And I had never really done a weight program, even during my boxing career. It was strength conditioning that I had done. Strength conditioning involves a lot of conditioning, like sprints and box jumps and a lot of other stuff. This was strictly a weight program I did with Adex, Mason Clubs company, ADEX. My guys Donnie and Sebi, they produced the clubs, and it really was an interesting kind of workout, And I'm still doing it. If people might recognize it from the Iron Sheik, used to like to do that kind of stuff. They look like bowling pins, the old school ones. And so these are it was really good, and it was also helping my grip and helping my forearms and stuff like that because the way you have to hold the weights and the way you have to do that kind of stuff started feeling good. And then it came to the point where it's like, yo, I could fight, like I wanted to see if my body could go through a training camp. And I think getting in shape like this, I can handle a training camp because, I haven't had any issues getting in shape, one good thing about me is I've never been a big drinker. I've never done drugs. So turns into one of those things where my only vice was really eating. I like to eat food, so it wasn't really a bad vice where it's just like all you got to do is get your diet plan right and be disciplined with the workouts and the diet, and you can get your body pretty into a pretty good place. As opposed to people that have done drugs and have done a lot of drinking. By the time they're my age, even if they get themselves into some kind of shape, it's your body's not going to react like when it was younger. And I'm not saying that my body's reacting like when I was younger, but here's the decision behind bare knuckle as opposed to regular boxing. I don't think I have the legs to do 10, 12 rounds. Like at my age, I can still give you 5, 6 rounds, good boxing. I can really, move my hands and be speedy and have good reaction timing. And I've seen that because the way I'm shadow boxing and the way I'm flowing. I still have that flow, but I don't think that 10 or 12 rounds is feasible, the way it was. Because I remember at the end of my boxing career, doing 10, 12 rounds, even when I was in shape, it started to become a little bit heavier on me. And my legs would start to give out on me and be a little bit tired. And, I was a person that used my legs a lot. I was a person that, relied on that kind of boxing, range changing and distance changing and distance control. So I feel like, when I started doing it, I'm like, I can't do this for 10, 12 rounds, but I could definitely do this for 5 or 6 rounds. So I think it's got to be, if it's going to be that way, it's got to be bare knuckle if I'm going to be fighting. And then it was just a matter of, like I said, once I decided it was bare knuckle, it was just a matter of, what is the motivation here? Is it can't just be the financial options, because that's not going to make me want to just get in fight shape, just because, like I said, I'm everybody could use more money, but it ain't like I need it to that degree where I'm going to put myself in that position just for the money. So, the issue was really, trying to capture a third world title. I put myself, in that position where it's like, what, if I can capture a third world championship in my life, in two different sports. I work with a guy who's won two world championships in two different sports, Chris Algieri, so he won a major world title in kickboxing, he won a major world title in boxing. So it kind of appealed to me, to have that thought in my mind. And then, you know, the reason for BKB is because they've been a company that has hired me for years. That I've seen their growth. I've been with them through their growth, and I think that, with the new TV deals that they're on the verge of signing, they're on the verge of doing a deal with Vice TV. They got a Spanish contract now, well, a Spanish contract coming up that they're in the works with Telemundo. So in North America, they've got some good locks on a good TV market, and I think they're ready to like make that next jump, And I think they have a solid, stable economic base that they've grown through a bit more of a patient approach than BKFC. But BKFC has kind of been a little bit wild with their money, from what I'm hearing, and they had the Trilla deal that kind of is imploding, and there's a lot of going on over there. And I'm not over there with the finances, but I'm just, there's a few people that approached me that never got paid over there and whatnot. So it kind of got me a little bit nervous about that anyway. So I went with BKB because they've been honest with me, they've been upfront with me, they've been a company that has grown with me, and I've grown with them. And I think if that company does well, the more that company does well, the better I do as well. And you know, I think when I look at how much BKFC grew after the fight I had with Artem Lobov years ago, I told myself, if I can help BKB do this, which is originally BYB. They merged with BKB and kept the BKB name because BKB was the older company, As I was originally working with BYB. They merged together, and BYB was Dada 5000's backyard brawls. I was commentating with them. Once BYB bought BKB, they decided to keep the original BKB name because it was an older company. That was the older name, and it goes a little bit further back. So BKB is essentially the company I started working with when it was BYB. Just that they merged together and it kept going. So I feel like with the way that BKFC really got catapulted itself forward through my name, with some of my help in that promotion with Lobov. I feel like, why not do it with these guys? Because they're a company that has done a lot for me. I've grown with them, they've grown with me, and as the better this company does, because I'm in with the hierarchy of the company. I'm in with the ownership of the company. I'm not an owner, obviously myself, but I have I have some guarantees with that company. So the bigger that company grows, the better it becomes for me anyway. So I said, why not do it with them and try to see if there's a similar reaction to BKB, me fighting in BKB than there was when I fought in BKFC, because I know how to promote a fight. I know how to get people involved and fans, create some fanfare and create some attention, So those are really, for the people that's saying, oh, some fighters can't put it away, some fighters can't drop the habit. But the people that are saying, oh, he needs money, it's about money. And for the people that are saying, he's got bad hands. How's it gonna happen? Well, I think that I've got some really good boxing skills. I think I learned in that BKFC fight when I did it. In terms of the way I got to turn my punches in a certain kind of way and not do it in completely the way we did in boxing. But ultimately, what I'm saying is everybody's probably a little bit right. Everybody's probably a little bit right, but nobody's directly right because there's various reasons I'm doing this. But I think it's the right move, and I think that it's going to be fun. I think it's going to be fun, and honestly, my body has reacted better than I thought it would as to me getting back in shape And, it's prepared for a training camp that I'm about to start soon.
We've built an amazing relationship. At least from my behalf, I feel like it. So I'm not disrespecting you here.
No, not at all.
I
I
know
wouldn't. I
your
wouldn't. I wouldn't.
stance.
Bro, I know the way you are. You're upfront
Okay,
like me.
good. I know your stance on PEDs, but bro, you
Mm-hmm.
look phenomenal. This
I,
have
I
you
will.
ever
I
been
will
in this type of shape? Like that
absolutely.
is
I'll tell you.
crazy. You got like an
I'll tell
eight
you what.
pack here, bro.
I'll send you a picture of me in 2008 that I had before when I was in one of my training camps at Herman and Gujo, and I actually look better than here. Here, I'll tell you the story
This
behind
is
this picture here.
yo. And then you're
This is
saying that I looked up A when you posted. I said, "What the fuck is ADEX?" I'm thinking, well, Paulie's in Florida. It's easy for fucking So, and then I see ADEX is weights. I
yeah,
didn't. I
weights
didn't
and
know
mace,
till
mace club.
today. I didn't know till today that those weights were for exercise. I'm like, what is this? Is
Yeah.
this like for baseball players to get ready for
Yeah. Well,
baseball?
there's a lot of athletes use them. As a matter of fact, he works with some baseball players as well because it's all based on motion. So it's based on motion as well as strength, right? So he does work with some baseball players and baseball coaches as well with some of those things. So the ADEX it was a different kind of workout. It was also a fun workout as opposed to your basic boring workout. But I will say that was right after a workout. I wish I could look like that all day. I don't. That
Bro,
was right after a workout.
I'm
I had a
telling you,
good
you gotta
going.
ask those guys to check their analytics on that day. I'm sure I'm not the only one that Googled ADEX that day and went to their website. I'm like, whoa, you look great, bro. I mean, no wonder you want to fight. You look great.
Yeah, no, I gotta say, like I said, that was after some months in the gym with ADEX. I have not gone to like a real gym. Those are, we just did some personals with the ADEX guys. But like I said, that was also you got to keep in mind one thing. First of all, with PEDs, for me, the body can be suspicious, but you know what's suspicious with me with PEDs? Endurance. Okay, endurance is more suspicious than body because everybody's body can be a bit different. Like I said, I've always taken care of my body in that way. But secondly, I had a pump going um after the workout. That was right after a workout. As you can see, I'm sweating. So right after a workout, your whole body's on a pump too. So I wish I could tell you I look like that right now, but I mean, I wish I could look like that right now. If I show you what's underneath my shirt
Hey,
right now, I mean, not to be that's what I
no.
look like right now.
And listen, if you wouldn't have shown me your shirt, I was literally about to say, bro, I was
But,
checking you out on the live broadcast and you didn't have a stomach. I remember seeing
but,
you at Pro
but,
Box with the stomach.
but, but look, does that look like I don't have a pump right now. It looks good, but
Yeah,
I'm
it
saying
looks
it's not.
good though. You
It's
still
not.
got the pack there.
But it's not, yeah, I'm flexing it. But what I'm saying? It's not like,
Bro.
I don't think it's that picture, honestly. Like, I think that picture was a good picture. I remember I finished the workout and I look at myself in the mirror and I'm like, yo, this looks good right now. Yo, take a picture of this right now. And, and we did it, like, and, with a good, but again, I had a good pump going. It was right after a workout. But I will tell you one thing, bro, the biggest, um, I think the biggest suspicion when it comes to PEDs is endurance, bro. Endurance, especially at an older age, endurance is like you can't look at me and then not ask Pacquiao the questions you just asked me, bro. You know what I mean? Like I hope you plan on asking Pacquiao those questions at the press conference for Barrios because then there will be hypocrisy if you don't now. Because I'll tell you what, endurance, especially in your 40s, it's not there the same way because your legs don't cooperate. Like I said,
Yeah.
I retired from boxing in my late 30s, and my legs were not there the same way in the late rounds. No matter how good a shape I got in, because your legs are the ones that betray you as you get older. So this was the reason I did bare knuckles opposed to boxing. If I had the legs, if I could rely on my legs, the same way I could rely on my legs when I was younger, at this age, I would box. Of course, I would box. It's easier on my hands. It's something easy to do. The reason I chose bare knuckles is because the endurance is not going to be there in 10, 12 rounds. I know it's not going to be there. I can get myself in shape, but if I start to lag with my legs, I can get myself in trouble. I can outbox almost any bare knuckle fighter. You know what I mean? Like
Mm.
even the fight with Lawbar, I broke my hand and we fought a completely different fight than what was planned, and I still outboxed him. You know what I mean? It was like whether the judges didn't want to give it to me or not is another thing. We live in a world where most boxing fans don't watch. don't watch bare knuckle. So, most of the people that watch that fight were MMA fans. MMA fans are the biggest retard group of fans that exist in the world today. So obviously they're not gonna understand. When you troll me about losing the Lawball fight, that's the equivalent of trolling me of losing the Juan Diaz fight. Nobody thinks I lost that fight with a sane head. You know what I mean? So
For sure.
so it doesn't really bother me because I know my hands last, and I know how to make them last a little bit better now. You know what I mean? Like I'm not gonna be turning shots the same way. I turned into a big right hand in that fight and broke my hand. If you don't turn your shots the same way as you do in boxing, and you just use your speed and you just use your footwork and you use your balance, you have a very big advantage in this sport because the stand up fighting is very very poor on this by the standards of boxing. There are some pretty decent fighters, but for the most part, most of it is poor and they're wild.
For sure, for sure. Before I get into like the fight from yesterday and things like that, I seen one of your quotes about you wanting to mentor fighters and potentially open a gym. Why wouldn't you do that right there at Pro Box?
Um, because my goal is to eventually wanting to do that in Sicily.
Oh
I
wow.
think that I think there's a lot in the U.S. It's a market that's kind of saturated in the U.S. With gyms and whatnot, and there's a lot of good trainers in the U.S. as well. I think the boxing in the U.S. is in a place where it's very elevated. It's very good level because there's a lot of good trainers in boxing. But I think Italy lacks the trainers. I think Italy has boxing, but the trainers are not in at least the qualified trainers. They're not in as high of a number, as large of a number. So, I do have a goal eventually to I mean, ideally, I eventually would like to move back to Sicily anyway because this is just a crazy place we live in, a crazy world we live in. I just want to have my own little private area, which and not have to deal with it. I just got a lot of roots planted on the ground here in the U.S., so I stay here in the U.S. for the time being. But my goal would be to return to Sicily anyway, and I think opening up something in Sicily where I think there's potential with the right kind of teaching and the right kind of training. I think that's a market that's sort of untapped in that way. There is boxing in Italy, but I don't think the trainers I don't think are qualified as much as some of the really good trainers in the U.S. I wouldn't have been able to excel in boxing if I was raised in Italy. I had to have been a New Yorker with the elevated levels of boxing that we have in the United States for me to have achieved what I achieved in my life.
Speaking of New York, Jihad Tucker, man, continues to impress. It was a great fight. I guess you could call it like the battle of the turnpike between Baltimore and New
Baltimore.
York. And
Hmm.
Truck Simpson, he fought good to me, just didn't let his hands go enough, and Jihad just
Hmm.
outworking him. I keep asking guys, who does Jihad remind them of? Everyone says Emmanuel Augustus. I know you're a bit of a historian, man. Who do you think? Because I didn't hear you say that on the
I think I
telecast.
think I think he's more physical than Augustus. I think he's a little bit. I think he's a little bit of a cross between Augustus and Sean Porter. Actually, you know, I think he's a little bit. I think he's a little bit more athletic than Porter, but he's a bit more physical than Augustus was. You know what I'm saying? Like you see on the inside, like he refuses the clinches. Like he'll throw a bunch of punches. They're really creative, really awkward. He'll make a weird move, really awkward. But sometimes instead of making that weird move and step around, he'll step in and maul you. He'll step into you and just maul you and disrupt your rhythm in that way. Where he'll just start mauling you and then tossing you around and giving you a frame, a forearm into your throat while creating punch options and then move his hands and then step around. So I think he's very difficult to deal with because Lorenzo Simpson is a good fighter and he was just kind of stuck in the mud last night. Um, Jahai is going to be a difficult thing to deal with. When I was watching him fight last night, up close like that, it really made me appreciate Nicholas Flores who beat him. And we've had Nicholas Flores on Pro Box now, so I've gotten to know Nicholas Flores well, and I've watched several of his fights, and I'm very very impressed with Nicholas Flores. And I knew he had the one win over Tucker. Tucker's only loss, and I appreciated Flaz because I see what he does and he's very, very good. And I think he's world championship material right now. But when I saw Tucker fight last night, I'm like, damn, like Flaz beat this guy. That's crazy. You know what I mean? Like Flaz is good, Tucker's good. And obviously Tucker has since moved up from the welterweight division. But yeah, man, really, really difficult guy to deal with,
He
man. I
moved
was
all the way to
really, really
60. How much you think that
yeah.
weight had to do with that loss? Because he moved
It,
from
it
like
could,
he's all the
you
way at
know,
60.
Yeah, it could have. You definitely have to consider that, right? I mean, but he's not a big 60. I'll tell you that, bro. I come from a generation where Kelly Pavlik was a middleweight, Jermaine Taylor was a middleweight, Bernard Hopkins was a middleweight. Last night's 160-pound fight with Tucker and Simpson, those ain't big 160s.
Yeah.
I think these guys, they're choosing to fight at this weight just to, be comfortable instead of killing themselves down. Simpson though had been fighting a little bit heavier, but that was more, I think, out of laziness than anything else. Because he can fight if he gets his weight down to a good point. But yeah, I mean, Tucker is a really awkward pesky. I used that word pesky last night. He's very
Yeah.
pesky. You know what I mean? He
Yeah.
steps around, he punches, he does. It's hard
And
to
he has a lot
figure
of
out.
dog in him too. In those clinches, he's
Yeah.
still punching you, and he's
Well, that's what I'm saying. He mauls you too. He bullies you. So he's gonna be difficult to deal with. I tell you. The middleweight division is interesting because there's not somebody really standing out. There's a lot of old men there. There's kind of
well.
a changing of the guard.
I
A
was
lot of
got.
changing of the guard happening soon. And because the guys on the come up are young and they're hungry and they're good fighters, and Jahai is definitely one of them.
I wanted to go there. Do you think he needs more development for what's on his side of the street? Is obviously oh my God, what's his name? Why am I escaping it? The unified
Janabek,
champ, Janabek.
Janabek.
And then
Yeah,
the other
I don't know.
guy,
I
then the other one I want to ask you about is the dark horse, Yonelis Hernandez, Yo-Yo,
yeah,
the one that just
yeah,
beat
yeah.
Tyrone.
Yeah. I mean, those Cubans are. He's a Cuban guy, right? He's a Cuban guy. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
those are always fast tracked. Those guys are fast tracked for a reason because they're so good. Um, it's funny. 160 is a little bit old and a little bit played, but right underneath, like those fringe contenders stepping into contender status, bro. Those guys are rough. There's some rough characters there, bro. You got Jahai, you got Hernandez that you just mentioned. Also, Xander's moving to 160 as well pretty soon, right? I mean, so you got
He's
you
got
got
his
a
first title shot coming up at 54. He's in a tough
yeah.
fight with the guy that
I
beat
personally don't.
Conwell.
I personally don't think which one the guy against the guy that beat Conwell.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not
I
a bad.
think
It's not
it's
an easy fight then. Because
yeah.
Conwell's a pretty good fighter. But I'll tell you what, I don't think he stays at 54, win or lose this fight. I think he goes on 160. So 160 is going to get very young, right? 160 is very old right now, but 160 is about to get very young very soon, and with some very good young, hungry fighters.
You called the Crawford Canelo kind of YouTube S because of the weight. How much does weight matter in that specific fight?
It matters, but I'm starting to lean more towards Crawford. Honestly, Canelo. I don't think Canelo's been world class for years. There's a reason he's been fighting at a little bit lower than world class level. He's been elevating guys who probably should have been in the ring with him and then giving them a bigger name because they fought him. But in reality, he should have been fighting the more elevated contenders that he was avoiding. And so he's allowed that weight class to sort of get a little bit muddled with guys that may not belong at the very, very top of it. Now they are at the top of it because they got the popularity from fighting him. So I don't know that he's even of the level at this point to beat Crawford. I do think size matters as far as the physically bigger fighter having advantages, but I think Crawford, I slightly edge Crawford in the fight, but the fight really doesn't really interest me. I'll watch it. Obviously, it's going to be a big deal, but is it really that good of a fight? It's two popular guys. We're to the point where people don't even mix styles anymore. Like back in the day, matchmaking was put these two styles together, and you're going to get a great fight. Gotti and Ward. Like we know, we got to make those fight because it's a great style. Now it's like you're popular. You know what? You're both popular. Let's just make the fight because popularity is going to draw fanfare and it's going to draw viewership, and the fight ends up sucking and nobody cares. They stole everybody's money. You know what I mean? That's sort of the matchmaking thing now. That's why YouTubers are doing their thing, and these kind of Hollywood fights are getting made. There's nothing appealing to it for a real boxing fan about these fights. For me, you want to know that for me the biggest fight you can make in boxing right now, for me, the best fight you can make in boxing for me,
Which
Inoue
one?
Nakatani. For me, it's
Okay.
Inoue Nakatani. For me, that's the most fun fight you can make in boxing right now. Where it's like styles, you got fanfare, and you got explosiveness, and you got two really good fighters.
You
To
don't think
me,
that Canelo Benavidez is bigger than that? Both
no,
fanfare
it's
and style
no,
matchup?
No, Benavidez
Canelo
runs him over.
Benavidez?
Benavidez runs him over like a truck. It's not even a good fight. Benavidez
Yeah,
runs him over and
that's what we
leaves him
thought
like
about
roadkill did.
Gennady. We thought that about Gennady, and it didn't happen in
Bro, Gennady beat
36
him 2
rounds.
times in a row and got robbed. What do you want the guy to do? The guy
But he didn't run him
and at
over.
35 years old, at 35, at 35 years old, nobody thought there's a
But he
reason.
never ran him over though. We
But
always
that was
thought Gennady was gonna do something.
but
Like
that
he
was
took that power
no.
so
Listen,
well.
that was Golovkin at 35, and then that was Canelo more primed age. So I don't think
Even
anybody
the
thought
first
Golovkin
fight
was going to
though,
run him over.
Paulie, even the first fight, that was the one where people feared the most. That's the one where he dropped his belt before even taking the fight. So it's like he never hurt him. He never even dropped
Well,
him.
he beat him easily in the first fight. They robbed him. The first fight was like a 10-2 fight. You know what I mean? Like they robbed him. In the second fight,
10-2, Lord have mercy.
the first fight,
10-2?
you were saying the same. Everybody was saying that. Everybody was saying
10?
the first fight. The first fight,
Bro,
everybody's saying that,
I'll
bro.
tell you what.
Everybody's got everybody.
I seen the A2 last
Everybody's
night
got
with
blurry
Truck.
goggles looking back. Everybody after the first fight couldn't believe that robbery. Okay, now everybody's like making like it was competitive. The first Golovkin Canelo fight, everybody and their mothers was complaining about a huge robbery. You know, everybody. You know, Adelaide Bird with her scorecard and so on and so forth. It was like a black eye for boxing. Now all of a sudden, years later, oh no, it was close. What do you mean it was close? You know, everybody was nobody thought it was close when it happened. Nobody thought it was close. Right. Then the second fight, Canelo gets an adjustment for coming forward, but Golovkin doesn't get an adjustment for knowing how to box in the back foot and jabbing him. The only one that got hurt in the second fight was actually Canelo, not Golovkin, but they gave Canelo the decision. So, I mean, come on, bro. I mean, then you wait till you're 40, he's 40 to fight him again. Come on, dude. You know, Mayweather used to rematch guys right away when there was a controversy. So I don't even want to go there with that. But I don't think anybody
Speaking,
thought Golovkin was going to run Canelo over at that time because it was always an older Golovkin. He didn't fight Golovkin until he was old. You know, even at 35, Golovkin was old. Nobody thought Golovkin was going to run him over, but the pick was Golovkin, sure. And rightfully so. Golovkin got robbed 2 times in a row. But this time, I mean, it's a past his prime Canelo. It's not even a world-class Canelo anymore. So, Benavidez
wow,
and Canelo
past
is
his
not a good fight.
prime?
You're just, bro, if he was any good, he would have not avoided Morrell and Benavidez.
But Paulie, how is he past his prime and he's still beating undefeated contenders and former champs? Like
Because they
Jaime
don't
still
show up.
was undefeated.
Nah, Ness. Now you're playing devil's advocate, but Ness, you know these guys ain't even showing up to fight. Ness, who's showing up to beat him? Who's actually trying to win the fight? Who's trying to win the fight? Did Berlanga try to win the fight? Did Skull try to win the fight? No, they didn't. They showed up to survive. Who's trying to win the fight? Nobody tries to win the fight. He fights guys who are intimidated mentally before the fight even starts. Nobody tries to win the fight. Show up, fight top contenders that are there to win the fight, and he gets beat. That's the way it works. That's the way boxing is supposed to work. Nobody's fighting him. He doesn't fight anybody that's even trying to win the fight. You know, Crawford's going to be smaller, but Crawford's going to try to win the fight, obviously. But the problem is, you've made a Hollywood fight at this point. Too much money, pictures with Turki Al-Ashik having dinner. Like, is anybody really going to take any risk? If anybody really going to take any risks, like, you're trying to sell us a fight. Instead, you're selling us a get-together. A social, like, get-together. Yeah, I hear you. A KO bonus.
What do you think the KO bonus is? Because it's like, how much money is going to entice Crawford to
No.
take this chance?
I don't think any money's going to entice Crawford to take this chance. I think Crawford's going to stick to a game plan and just beat him. I mean, Canelo, I think, has to win by knockout anyway. But I think Crawford doesn't care whether he wins by knockout or decision. The question is, can Crawford get a decision? At this point, he probably can. You know, because nobody really. I think Canelo's popularity is kind of waning anyway. So I mean, I don't think Crawford's going to put himself out there just to get a KO bonus. I think Crawford's going to stick to a game plan. He's very, very disciplined. It's in his demeanor to stay disciplined and be disciplined. I think that's what the way he's going to fight.
Did you think Crawford got dropped in the Velasquez fight?
I did. Yeah.
Okay, so you watched it.
Yeah.
Did you feel Crawford was getting hit with the left hook too much in the Madrimov fight?
Yeah, but the question is Madrimov sharper than Canelo at this point? You know what I mean?
Fuck no!
Okay.
Come on, Paulie.
All right. We'll see in September.
What, 10 fights?
No, the guy's got like 7,000 amateur. The guy's got 7,000 amateur fights. 10 fights doesn't count.
3-round fights though, like you said.
No, They're all at world class level. They're not fighting cab drivers. There's no cab drivers. When you're fighting,
you could take
400
bare
amateur
knuckle fights because they 3 rounds. You said you
Yeah,
don't
for
want to do
endurance
a
purposes.
12-round fight.
For endurance purposes,
And
sure,
that's
but
my point.
in the amateurs, you're also dealing with world class fighters constantly.
Yes.
There's no Mexican cab drivers you get to fight for 40 fights either. You know,
I don't know.
you got to.
Paulie,
There's no soft touches
I
when you get
need
to
you
that
and the
level of amateur.
guys. I need you and the guys on Pro Box in that beautiful studio. Put up some footage and dissect Madrimov catching Crawford trying to exit
Yeah.
out the right with that
Mm-hmm.
left and compare Canelo's Mexican traditional favorite punch, the left hook. He still caught and shot Berlanga, 200-pounder, and dropped him with the left hook.
Record this. Make sure you have this footage in
It's
September.
live. It's live.
Make sure you have this. Make sure you have this footage on September 13th, bro.
Well, this is just a
That's all I'm
question
gonna
because
say. Yeah.
you're a boxer.
Canelo's been destroying our business and our sport for the last bunch of years, and we're sitting here defending him. I mean, correct. Like I said, make sure you have this. Make sure you have this footage September 13th, the day after the fight. You know, he keeps
Okay.
avoiding. Like making the best fights in boxing starts with the biggest stars first, and when the biggest stars set a precedence of taking subpar opposition, everybody else follows. You know,
But
Canelo is first
but
and foremost the
Paulie,
main one to blame for all this crap for these
well,
fights not
well, wait a
happening.
minute. Wait a
Because
minute.
you have to lead by example
Shouldn't we
as
point the
as stars.
finger? I mean, granted,
At who?
I'm not going to get into that
At who?
argument. Yes, Canelo has some faults,
At who? At
but
who? The Usyks of the world were fighting all top opposition. Who? At who?
no.
Who are we going to point to? Who are we going to point it
We're
to?
going to point the finger at Turkey Al-Sheikh. Because just
Why
hear
we
me out
point the
on
finger?
this one.
What?
Hear me out. Hear me
And,
out.
and you know me, I don't pull punches with anybody. But why in this regard is Turkey Al-Sheikh's fault? Why in this
All
regard
right.
is it his fault?
Canelo verbally came out and said, give me 150, 200 million, I'll fight David Benavidez. We all laughed at that. All of a sudden, you're paying him 150 to fight fucking Terrence Crawford?
Yeah. I got it.
So give us the fight that we want. It's your fault. We didn't want this. Canelo would have fought the man.
Maybe Canelo in private didn't want the fight anyway. Maybe he would. You know, in reality, it's more beneficial for Canelo to fight Crawford. If he gets
I
his
don't
ass
know.
whooped by
David
Crawford,
just did an interview saying that he says something like that. I can pull it up, but he says not something like what you're saying. He says something more along the line that Turkey does want to fight with him and Canelo. So I just don't get why
but
would you give them.
Once Crawford beats him, does it really matter? I mean, who wants to see the guy get run over? Like, what are we gonna kick it? What are we gonna kick it? What are we gonna kick it? What are we gonna
Damn.
kick a dead horse? You're gonna kick a
That's
dead horse?
it.
You're gonna put him in with Benavidez after he
Wait.
loses to Crawford?
So
Yeah,
that's it.
that's
You're
insult to injury
100%
now.
on the Crawford side because you got so
At this
many
point,
quotes that sounded like you
at
were
this point,
on the
I did.
Canelo side.
I saw this Paul fight and I changed my mind. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
but
did.
hold on, that's great. Let's talk about that because didn't that just look like an entitled fighter that is used to he's just like, look, come on, Turkey, look at what this guy is doing. Come on, ref, look at what he didn't want to cut the ring off. He didn't want to come to work.
Yeah, I gotcha. But he also just fought Berlanga, and and he didn't really
And dropped the
he like I said,
200-pounder. How would Crawford
who
do
was
with Berlanga?
who didn't try to win from round one? Sure, we can
How
do
would
it. You drop
Crawford
a
do
guy
with
who didn't.
Berlanga?
How does Crawford do it? No, that's a too big guy. It's too big of a
Oh
guy.
my
But
fucking God, Paulie, you're terrible. So wait, Berlanga's a big guy for
weight
Crawford, but
classes matter. Yeah, because Crawford's already coming up to fight Canelo, but Canelo's an X 150. Canelo's an X 154, bro.
so
Berlanga's an
wait a
actual
minute.
165 going to 75. You got,
Let me
these
get
things
this.
matter.
Let me get this
No,
straight.
serious. No, hold on. Canelo was at 154 that went to 160 that topped out at 168. It's not
Yeah.
it's
But
not
let me
Berlanga
get
who's
this
at
straight.
168 moving to 160 75 and probably cruiserweight later.
But
Like
I'm just trying to follow
it's
your
much
logic
different.
here.
It's
I'm
much
trying to
different.
follow your logic. The dude that beat Berlanga will lose to the welterweight, but the
No,
200
welterweight.
pounder that
To the
lost
lightweight. To the
would
lightweight.
beat
Because
the
Crawford's for a
welterweight.
lightweight.
I mean,
Well, like I
I
said,
don't know. That one is wild.
September 13th. Just record this. September 13th.
So
We got it. Make sure this is recorded.
it's
September
live.
13th.
It's live.
Yeah.
It's here
Yeah, but
forever. But listen,
make sure you can pull it back up. September 13th. We see.
my fans are gonna clip it if you're right. Listen, you've also compared. You got these Bud Crawford fans. I call them Bud tenders. They call in here gang banging. You got them too excited. You compared Bud to Floyd and said Bud is more of a complete fighter. Why? Because he got more
No.
knockouts.
No. When did I say that? I don't think
I don't know.
I said.
It
I don't
says
think I said that. No.
I
I don't think
googled it and it says you've
I mean,
compared
it
Crawford
might be a
style to
quote.
Floyd
It might be a
Mayweather,
quote.
saying he's more a complete fighter than Canelo.
Who is?
You
Crawford
said
is. Crawford's way
yes,
more of a complete fighter than Canelo. Absolutely.
but you've
I thought you were
compared
talking
his
about he's more of a
style.
complete.
But you've compared his style to Floyd.
No, I compared his level of dominance to Floyd. I wouldn't compare
Okay.
his style to Floyd. I think Crawford's style is its own style. I don't think it's similar to Floyd. They're both boxers. They're both cerebral fighters. They're both IQ guys, but they both do physically different things. But his level of dominance is that of Floyd. That's the comparison. You got to put the context into it as well. His level of dominance is the level of Floyd. I mean, you're talking about, we waited for the Errol Spence fight for years, and he comes in and walks through him, most through him like a lawnmower on grass. You know what I mean? Like, you got to put that into context and then keep in mind all the other dominant performances he put on before that. And you're like, oh, this guy's for real when you put it hindsight, everything being 2020. So I do think the Madrimov weight and the fighter Madrimov gave him some trouble. But I don't think Canelo's as sharp as Madrimov at this point. I don't. So so I think I think that's why the risk at 168 is a bit more calculated.
What about the power? Isn't that the last thing to go? He still broke Callum Smith's
Yeah,
bicep, dropped the
yeah, yeah, yeah.
200
Yeah.
pounder in Berlanga, dropped Munguia with the uppercut,
No, the power
broke the
is there.
face of
The power
Billy
is the
Joe.
power the power is there, but you gotta go get it. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
listen,
but he
he hits
countered with the
Crawford. Crawford's a
uppercut.
smaller guy. He could hurt him. He could hurt him. He could hurt Crawford if he hits him. But again, I just think Crawford, once he starts frustrating you, putting hands on you, you're gonna start to respect him a little more. You're gonna get more gunshot. And the more gunshot you get, then the less of chance you have of landing that power. I just think Crawford is a guy who builds up as the fight wears on by getting you to a point where you become gun shy and you become hesitant. And if you anybody who's hesitant and gun shy is not punching the same way anymore, because now they're not punching with the same enthusiasm because they're too worried about what's coming back. I think Crawford builds to that kind of crescendo in the fight.
Compare Billy Joe Saunders Southpaw, Crawford Southpaw. What's the difference?
I think I'll tell you what the difference is. Billy Joe was nervous and tight in that fight. He was very tight. He was reaching from far distances. It wasn't as smooth of a Billy Joe as we've seen. I think Crawford has ice in his veins. I really do. Crawford is one of the most emotionless guys. One thing about Crawford, my opinion, he's one of the most calculated, ice in his veins type of guys. Like, honestly, like, he feels no emotion in there, and he does a very good job at keeping his emotional levels to a point where nothing affects him. Man, I'm telling you, Billy Joe was a good fighter. He's a slick southpaw, but in the fight, you can see he was tight. He was tight. He couldn't get into a groove. He couldn't get into a rhythm, and it eventually cost him. And the tightness of the moment got to him, I think. But I not that it can't happen, but I'm telling you, man, Crawford is a different kind of emotional player in that regard. He's got that calculated assassin in him, and the emotional levels don't go high or low based on these kind of situations. I think he lives for them.
And what about Crawford compared to Islandri Laura? Cuban amateur background. Never
Yeah,
switches to
um,
orthodox. Born in that southpaw. And
yeah.
look at that fight with Canelo.
I think Lara's more of a shifty guy. I think Crawford's shifty, but Crawford also, changes levels, changes height, changes looks. In that regard, Crawford is more like Floyd in terms of giving you different looks, giving you different levels, give level changes, giving you different heights and whatnot. Lara was one style that was very good. He's a moving southpaw. Sort of in the mold of the old computer scoring system of boxing and the amateurs, where he just clips you and moves, clips you and moves and clips you and moves. Crawford, I think, is more versatile in that way. I think in that way you can compare him to Floyd in that he gives you different looks. He fights out of different looks. He like different heights. He changes his defense. From blocking to moving to head movement to slipping and sliding to countering. I think he's got a good variation of that, and that's part of what makes him effective.
You've said that Canelo isn't in his prime, that you feel, quote unquote, he's half assing it. So isn't that like not really giving it 100%? So with an opponent like Crawford, him verbally coming out in a press conference saying, I know Turkey's on your side. Turkey verbally and on video saying, oh, I should sit on this side. Like, you don't think this is extra added motivation? Like, can't he punch in this time and be the
No, no, this
employee
is
of the month?
no, this is soap opera stuff. This is just you're selling me shenanigans. You're selling me shenanigans. What are you talking about? That's all soap opera shit.
No.
That's all
Oh,
shenanigans. You're selling me shenanigans. Yeah, that's nothing. You
oh,
know,
man.
that's nothing.
Listen, do you still have time so I could get to some questions from the people?
I got 2 minutes. Go ahead.
All right.
2 minutes.
Donald in Baton Rouge says, "Where do you see yourself in the next 5 years?"
Um, in 5 years, I hope to be living in Sicily, but we'll see.
Wow,
Like I said,
really?
I got my roots planted here right now. I got a lot. Like I said, I mean, from a financial perspective, I can't just pick up and leave because I got
How
things
long
I
have you
own here.
have you ever lived there?
Yeah, I lived there as a child. Yeah, I
Yeah,
lived
but
there
as
as
an adult, why you don't buy something and kind of go back and forth? That's what I'm trying to do in DR.
I do have something there. I do go
Okay.
back and forth, but I'd like to spend more time there. I probably wouldn't like totally stay there 100% of
Yeah.
the time. I'd probably still go back and forth, but I want right now. I'm heavily majority time here, but I go back to Italy every year. But I'd like to
What's
be
better?
majority
What do
time
you
here.
like more about it? Is it the weather? What the
I'm
culture?
I'm I'm older. It's just chill, more chill. I'm older. Like
Yeah.
I'm not a big city person anymore. I just want to chill, and Sicily has kind of like that chill vibe. I'm just older, and then my mentality is just different.
So in terms of being older and chill vibe, you get that in Florida. So is it the lack of the Sicilian culture in Florida? Because Florida's pretty
Yeah,
chill.
yeah. Well, I'd say so. Yeah. I mean, I like Florida, and I like my the culture in Florida because a lot of New Yorkers moved down there, so I don't have
Hmm.
to miss New York so much. But yeah, you know what I also like? I gotta be honest. The food's natural over there. In America they poison us constantly. The food is,
Yes.
very the food is very it's very very strict in Italy right now. At least for the time being. I think Bill Gates will eventually poison the whole world. But that's a different conspiracy for a different conversation for a different time. But I think at the moment at least Italy has very strict standards of what they allow you to put in their food, and so I think the quality of food is good. It tastes better. It is better, and it's healthier. And so so that's one of the reasons as well.
Man, since you only got 2 minutes, I got to slide in. Haney, Brian Norman Jr. Do you think it happens, and is it a bad style matchup?
I'm not crazy about the style matchup. I'm not crazy. There's a lot of other fights we can make there. I mean, it's two names that are appealing. Again, boxing likes to make names that are appealing and just make the fight. But I think there's other good fights to make with between those two guys. I don't think they should fight each other. At least not at the moment.
You don't think the element of danger that Norman brings with that left hook, isn't that what we're looking for? To see can Haney take a good left hook?
I mean, we already saw it, right? I mean,
Yeah, but it
he
was
put himself in a position.
it was
No, but what I'm saying
PED
is he put
infested
himself
left hook.
he put himself. No, no, of course I agree with you. But what I'm saying he was he's in position. He gets hit with left hooks. You know what I mean? But Newman also caught Sasaki pulling straight back like that. Either listen, he's not going to catch Haney that easily either with that hook. I mean, listen, Haney gets hit with hooks, but Haney, you saw the way Sasaki got caught. I mean, he threw a jab to the stomach and then pulled straight back. I mean,
Well, he caught
we're
Cuevas with the hook too. That's what I'm saying. He's just and he
yeah,
loves
yeah,
that uppercut hook
yeah,
combination.
yeah. But I think Haney's more shifty. I think it evolves in a different kind of fight. And I don't think it's really that entertaining. At least right now. Right, I like to see them. I don't mind seeing them, but I just prefer to see them against different opponents.
So you think Norman needs more development?
I mean, I think Haney needs more development too. It's like
No,
I
because
think
again, if you think Norman is ready, he should be able to cut the ring off and stop Haney.
I think the fight for Norman, sure, but I just don't. I don't want to see it. I don't think it's that entertaining. I don't think it's that fun. I don't think it's a fun fight to watch. I don't want to put two guys together just because of their names. I want to see styles that blend together to make a good fight. That's what
What
I was.
what?
That was what I was complaining about. That's what I was complaining about 10 minutes ago, 15 minutes ago. We make too many of these fights where we just put popularity names together instead of actually analyzing the styles and making fights good, making fights together based on the styles.
So who would you put those guys in with? What are better fights for them?
Norman. Norman. I'd say. You know what? I like to see guys start to step into the big title picture in the welterweight division that are young and that are good fighters. I like Brandon Lee fought last night. He wasn't super impressive, but I like to see Brandon Lee start to get on some opportunities.
But he's
I want to see
40. He's
Nicholas.
not 47.
No, he's 47, dude. He can't make 40
Really?
no more. He didn't make weight for the fight, and he's gonna probably move up. Yeah,
Oh,
he he,
okay.
he, he
But
missed he missed weight for the fight.
then he needs to get acclimated. He's not
And yeah,
ready for
yeah, of course,
Norman.
but he's young, and I feel like he's been a fun guy to watch. I like to see him start stepping in. Nicholas Flores, I think I'd like to see him start get opportunities.
Me too.
I think there's
But I don't know. I mean, I know
triple
you're a
H,
pro box
and these
guy.
guys are all these guys are all young too. Norman is young.
I,
I'd like to see them all fight. Get in there and fight.
I know you're a pro box guy, but I hear Nicholas Floss turned down that Rohan Polanco fight, man. And you a New Yorker,
Um,
so contact Hector Bermudez, man. That's what Bermudez is
Yeah.
telling us.
No, no, no. I think I heard that too, but I think they want a bigger fight, man. They want a title fight. They want a bigger fight. They've taken a lot of risks. Yo, listen, Floyd was fighting guys like Jihad. Look at Floyd's record. I
Yeah.
think he's tired of just. I think he's tired of being the guy who tests everybody else. He wants to be the guy who gets the big opportunity. So I think in that regard, Floyd has a point. Floyd was thrown in with everybody. That's why he had 2 losses early in his career. And yet, and he beat some of those guys. Like I said, he beat Jahai Tucker. He beat some of these other guys. You know what I mean? But he still has 2 losses early in his career because nobody took care of him. And he just constantly got thrown in tough with more risk than reward. So I think Floyd is tired of that. And I think he feels like he's earned his a chance to get a bigger reward fight than a risk fight. And maybe you combine the risk and reward and then make it both at the same time. That's fine. But I think Flies deserves that. And Polanco's a good fighter, but I think that's more so him turning the reason for him turning it down. It's like I gotta constantly take risk over reward consistently. Like when does it stop? When do my performances start to get me what I deserve? And I think he's got a point.
Still got
Look,
time?
Mario Barrios is the welterweight champion of the world, bro. You know what I mean? Like, enough. You know what I mean? Like, guys like Nicholas Floyd deserve a shot. Like, freaking Mario
Hey,
Barrios is the welterweight title.
don't underestimate Barrios, man. He's dropped everybody he's fought except for Tank and Thurman, pretty much. Like, he's got
Yeah.
underestimating power.
Yeah. I mean, he's not. He's there, but whatever. I don't think he's world championship material.
bro,
He's not
bro, you're
horrible,
good
but
at what you do,
by
man.
championship level,
I was
by
I was
championship level standards, he's not of the level for me.
you're good at what you do. I was very happy to hear you on ESPN. I had no clue, man. When I turned on, I tuned in for the heavyweight fight. I think was the first one I started watching.
Yeah, yeah. So
Did you think the
that was agonizing. That was
did
agonizing.
you, did you think that the ring even made a difference? I feel like those fights would have played out that way anyway. No one really used
Yeah,
the ring,
yeah.
and
It
when
did make a
Jahai
difference.
used the ring, he was
Yeah,
still
yeah,
doing
yeah. And
well.
in the end, it didn't make a difference. It made the heavyweights even more unwatchable though, because then they were constantly clinching. You know?
We got Nathan that says, "Will you ever come back to commentate in the UK?"
I commentate BKB, maybe to do some BKB stuff in the UK, especially now that I'll be fighting. The rumor is I'll be fighting in the UK with the BKB fight. Maybe do some commentating there as well. I'm actually commentating in the UK with BKB on July the 5th. I believe it's like July. Yeah, I believe the July the 5th is the date. So in that regard, I do work in the UK. As far as my relationship with the Sky Sports and all that other stuff, we have a heavily left wing TV leaning people, and I'm not really left wing or right wing. I just have my beliefs, but I don't subscribe to certain extreme beliefs, both from a moral perspective and from an anti-white perspective. And so, because I don't, I think I had an issue with Showtime, but also there was a guy at Sky who also subscribes to those same kind of extreme views, and he went out of his way to make sure I don't get back on Sky. That was Jonathan Licht. He's the president of Sky Sports League. He can
Damn.
lick my balls. He can actually lick my balls. All I give a shit about. I could care less. I do miss being in front of the fans and commentating there, but that guy was that's the guy who was personally responsible because they were trying to bring me back for Eubank and Smith too. And when I got there, he stepped in. They actually flew me in, and he stepped in. He's one of the higher. He's like one of the main high ups, or if not the main high ups. And he actually stepped in and said, "No, I was already there. I was ready to work that week. They flew me in. They spent the money and everything." He actually made the call from the very top and said, "No, he doesn't work for us. He won't work for us."
Wow.
So, so that I will never work for Sky again.
That
Um,
sucks.
but yeah, I mean, I don't really care. I mean, it's not making or breaking me. But like I said, from the perspective of it was always fun to be with UK proud of UK fans. That's what I do miss. 'Cause those fights are always fun, and it's good to interact and engage with the fans and whatnot. But I'll get it through BKB. I'll do some stuff with BKB if anybody wants to see me.
Speaking of BKB, Fun Truck says, "Would you rematch Artem?"
Yeah, I'd be up for it. I don't think it was a difficult fight the first time. I thought I won it, and I fought it one-handed. I think with two hands, I'd probably stop him. And that's not disrespect to him. He's a tough guy, but I mean, the instant I started shooting firepower, I broke my hand. So then I had to kind of go back into a shell of what myself was, and I still thought I won the fight. But yeah, I mean, I'd be up for it. But and that's not a disrespect to Lobov. But credit to him for getting in there and doing it. He couldn't have planned that I would have broke my hand, and the fight would have went like that. But even with a broken hand, I mean, let's face it. I mean, I thought the fight was easy even with a broken hand. So with two hands, I think I'd stop him.
I like this next one, and I want to add to it. Alan Day says, "How did you score the fight between you and Broner? I had you winning that." Now that you're in fight shape, is that a 12-round fight you would do? You and Broner, he's not in the best of shape either. He would have to take, have a whole
I
camp to
mean, I
get back
mean,
right.
I mean, can you sell that? I don't know. I mean, would somebody pay for that? I don't know. Like, I think me and Brona
Fuck, they pay for
had
him
some.
and they pay for him and Blair the Flair.
Yeah, but that was Don King. I mean, do I really want to deal with Don King? Um, um, I don't know, man. If there's a market for it,
Is that too big for Pro Box's budget?
yeah, I think so. I think so. Because like I said, I mean,
Could
I'm not doing
could
it
you
just.
not
I'm
do
not.
that as the first Pro Box pay-per-view and just price it right?
Maybe. I
They,
mean,
I mean, they
I
were thinking about. Listen, I know the rumors. They were thinking about doing a fucking pay-per-view with Bivol and Hot Rod once
yeah,
upon a time. So I mean,
yeah.
Paulie and Broner pay-per-view on Pro Box sounds better. Rematch. It's got
Yeah,
history.
but here's the thing. Here's the thing, right? And not to cut my own nose off to spite my face, but is me and Bro in a rematch the same thing as Leonard Duran 3? Where like it happened, but who cared? You know what I mean? Like it was so
Well,
long.
I
It was
mean,
so long after.
there's people like me. I never let my audience forget that post-fight interview was epic, and it got you a job. I mean, let's be
Yeah.
real. You told the truth.
No,
So I
no,
mean, he called
it
you
almost
after
lost.
that.
No, that one almost lost me my job, bro. Forget it. That
I
one
thought
almost
I
lost me
thought
my job.
after that is when you started commentating on
No,
Showtime.
I was at Showtime a year before. I almost lost it.
Oh,
That promotion almost cost me the job. I got threatened. I had to bite my tongue so many times during that promotion.
the way
Yo,
I had it made it.
if I wasn't working for Showtime, that promotion, as crazy as it was, would have been even crazier. It would have been even crazier. But I
I
was working
felt
at Showtime.
like
I had to bite my tongue and cut myself off from some actions at times.
the way I interpreted your post fight for Adrian Broner, how you called out Al, I thought it
Mhm,
got you a job because after that, it felt like you
mhm.
got a bunch of Al Heyman fights.
No, it got me signed to PBC. Yeah, it got
Okay.
me signed in. Yeah,
That's
but
what.
I'm telling you that. But it had the commentating I already had for a year. I had been
Okay.
commentating for a
Well,
year. I had been
I
commentating.
felt like I
Not a year.
remember
I
you
had been
were like, if
commentating for
I
about
was
8 months.
you was like, if I was managed by Al Heyman, I'd be a fucking star.
Yeah,
Yo, you went
yeah.
off, and
No, it
then all
was.
of a sudden you got
And
him.
I said that. No, I think that put me in a position to get some Al Heyman fights. But the first fight I worked with Showtime was Canelo versus Josecito Lopez. After that, I got the job. I got the job that night. After I got off the air, they loved me so much on that broadcast that they hired me on the spot. So, and that, if you look at the dates, that was October 2012, maybe September 2012. So, I fought Broner in June of 2013. So yeah, I already had the Showtime job.
Look, live people saying $20 pay-per-view sounds good, man. You just got to figure out how many we need. George Foster in the UK says Usyk versus Dubois. What do you think? And how do you?
That's a tricky one. That's a tricky one because I thought Dubois' success in that fight was a little bit overrated by the wet ring because Usyk's a footwork guy and him not being able to shift I think is the reason he probably got himself in some bad situations. If he's able to shift the way he usually shifts, I think he probably wins that fight easy. But now you got a more confident, more mature Dubois who's coming into his own, and you have an older Usyk. Usyk, as good as he is, he's at an age where any fight you get at this point, you show up old and you're done. So I think this fight's a little bit more tricky. You want to probably lean toward Usyk, but you just wouldn't be as shocked if Dubois wins it like you would have been the first fight.
Mm. Got time?
Okay, one more. Come on.
All right. Quest, the best. He says, "What's up, champ? Blind rank these all-time welterweight boxers."
Okay. Oh, these are
First
tough. These are
one,
always tough.
Brian Norman.
I don't get what all time. What do you- Brian just started. How would we rank him?
All right, so it's only 1 through 5 because it's only 5 boxers. Where would you put Brian Norman?
I mean, in an all-time list. I mean, probably right now 5. He hasn't accomplished enough. I mean, we're talking
Ad-
all time. Though I don't know what the other 4 are going to be, so it's tough.
Adrian Broner,
Um, 4.
Boots Ennis,
3.
Marvin Hagler,
At welterweight. At welterweight.
welterweight.
Wait, a weight drained Marvin Hagler? Maybe 2 because he's weight drained.
And Terrence Bud Crawford.
1. Okay.
Okay, there you go. Champ, I appreciate you, man. Thank you, and congratulations again on the top rank. Hope to see you back there and all the success on Pro Box. Pitch the idea, man. We don't know.
Yeah.
We don't know, man.
Yeah,
They
we'll see.
might do it.
We'll see. I can only be in one place at a time. So for now, I'm focused on BKB. But we'll see. We'll see what happens, man.
All
All
right,
right.
champ. Appreciate you.
Talk to you
There
guys
you have
soon.
it, ladies
Take
and
it easy.
gentlemen. Paulie Malignaggi.